Welcome, everybody, to Patriots Law Group Live. We are welcoming everybody back who has been tuning in. This is actually our fourth week where we focus in on military divorces and all of the legal strategies that go in, where we bring you specialized expertise in military divorce, where we have Mike Lyons, and we usually have Patrick Hughes with us, but he is taking a very much needed vacation. I'm Maureen Edwards, and I am your host. And I will be kind of chit-chatting back and forth with Mike to help guide this week's topic. And this is all about a really important one about, what type of questions should you be asking your attorney if you are experiencing a military divorce? And we're going to focus in on the top 5. So if you are experiencing a military divorce and you are active duty or a veteran, or even if you're a military spouse, you are in the right place today, because this show, where we tune in on the 2nd and 4th of every month, is all about giving you some guidance, some legal advice, helping you navigate the process, and really just helping you through this really difficult time. We're also here for those of you who are in the legal profession and you want to kind of stop in and see what's the latest trends out there. What's the latest education? We have some real specialized information out there that is current, and you maybe want to take a few notes on what's going on out there. So, Mike, welcome back.
Hey. Thank you, Maureen. I appreciate the introduction. So yeah, we're going to go over the top 5 questions that you should ask your divorce attorney if you're involved in a military divorce case. And it's as much about getting information as it is sort of doing a litmus test to make sure you know what your attorney does or doesn't know about some really nuanced areas of military divorce. So that's really the design here. It is current, obviously, as of this video. So, the first one, ask your attorney, we're fighting over these survivor benefits tooth and nail, most cases, right, of any lengthy marriage. And ask what happens if you remarry? What happens, because it's a question that if you don't do a lot of military divorce, if you haven't seen survivor benefits, also called SBP, you don't even think that's an issue, right? But it is an issue. So asking that question, and there's a lot more nuance to the survivor benefit program, the SBP program, than just this one that will surprise you like a landmine. And so if the answer you get is doesn't really align with some of what we're going to talk about here, your radar should go up. And we'll talk about at the end about how to navigate that piece. And it doesn't always mean that attorney shouldn't be your lead counsel. But so that's why it's important to ask this question. Here's what you need to know. Here's the answer that you're looking for from your attorney is if you get remarried before the age of 55, then the SBP program suspends so long as you're married and so long as you remain married in that subsequent marriage. So I see, maybe I was guilty of it early on before we really specialized and had pretty much all of our cases being military divorce type cases in our family law practice. And so I see attorneys all the time that are fighting for survivor benefits and they have a 25-year-old spouse, or a 30-year-old spouse. And if they don't have children, frankly, almost to a person, when I ask this question and they're in that range, no children, young, you think you might get remarried is, yeah, I think I might. And so 55 years old is a pretty big gap, 20 years or so. So we approach that differently. And maybe your attorney should too, but you want to know, right? You at least want to know so you can structure and negotiate appropriately. Above 55, the follow-on question is, okay, so what happens if I get married after 55? What if I wait? Well, if you wait, no effect whatsoever. So, you might negotiate that case differently also. So I think that's a big one. That's a pretty big, that's almost a gotcha question if you're a lawyer that doesn't do this, because you're sort of, why are you asking? um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's tip number one, Maureen.
You
All right.
know, this is going to be definitely an age, determinant right there. The younger they are, I mean, they're going to end up losing those benefits for the
Right.
most part. Yeah. They're going to have to know that right up front.
And here's really why it's important. You might say, well, I might as well secure them. And then if I'm remarried and I don't get them, so what? Well, the same occasions where I see attorneys and clients arguing for these in that setting are generally agreeing to pay for them. And so you end up paying a premium. Let's say you don't get remarried for 5 years. You pay this premium for 5 years or longer, and then suddenly you remarry, only to find that when the former service member passes away, you get no benefits at all. And that's kind of insult to injury, that if you look back on it and say, if I had only known. So ask your attorney so you know, is tip number one. All right. So tip number two, sticking to SBP. I tell you, I've said it before and I'll say it 100 times through these LinkedIn lives. SBP is what keeps me up at night because it is highly technical. It's nothing but an insurance contract esque um, um, annuity, and darned if it doesn't have the same sharp corners as every insurance contract you've ever dealt with, where they suddenly say, "Oh, depreciation applies." All right. Number two, ask your attorney, and this one's critical. Ask your attorney, what do you need to file in order to secure your SBP after the divorce? We have attorneys that come to our practice that haven't been in a military focused firm, and they get to the end of the case and they say, here are your appeal rights. It's been nice working with you. Let me know if you need anything in the future. And don't recognize until our end of matter process requires an up or down, has this paperwork actually been filed by us, or is there something to file notifying the other, or notifying the client they need to file it? But what needs to be filed, and what your attorney should be saying to you needs to be filed, is a DD form 265610. It's called a deemed election. And it must be filed no later than 1 year from the date of the divorce. If it is not, SBP, despite all the legal wrangling and the horse trading, and I'll give you more of this as long as I get this SBP, has just been a waste. And it's forever gone. That's why I stay up at night on it.
Wow. All right. I'm going to make sure when I do the recap after this that people are going to have to take notes. I'm going to make a big disclaimer. Make sure you take notes when watching this, because they're going to have to write this stuff down.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, all right. Very important one.
I've been accused of being too technical in the past, but I think on this subject, it is so technical that you can't help but be technical.
Yeah.
All right. Number three, and this one applies if you're the former spouse. And what you're going to want to ask is, and this is sort of in the beginning of a case, ask your attorney to calculate for you the military family support that you're entitled to under the military regs for the branch of service, the spouse who's serving is in. I've mentioned in the past, or in other LinkedIn's, but a service member has an obligation to pay family support. And the military regs actually have formulas that can calculate exactly what they need to pay. The beauty of that is you can make that request right out of the gate, and there's no dispute as to the amount required by the reg. So if your attorney doesn't know how to calculate it, then that more likely means he or she does not know that this regulation exists. And how this family supports works is you get that money from the service member until you finally get to court, have a hearing, and then the court sets how much should be paid, or maybe you reach an agreement. So it's immediate, temporary, monetary, cash support. And it's the lowest hanging fruit out there. Ask your attorney, do you know about this? And if not, can we figure this out? Because it's a real loss to simply because you or your attorney don't know what you don't know, that it's lost and bypassed.
People, do you think, lose this type of revenue, this type of income that could be happening their family because they don't know this and the attorney doesn't know this, and like you said, it's lost?
Yeah.
Have you seen this a lot?
Oh, I see it all the time. If I'm on the service members, we represent both sides. We represent the full military family, and strongly believe both the spouse and the service members are serve our country. We make no distinction between the uniformed spouse or parent and the non-uniformed. And when I'm on the service members team as their attorney or military consultant, I don't say it to anybody. And I see attorneys treating these cases like any other case, where they file in court and say, we want what's called pendente lite. It might be a term you've heard with your attorneys, that pending litigation. Well, it takes 2, 3, or more months to get to that hearing. Well, what do they say in a missing person? The first, 48 hours is the most critical time. In a divorce, really, the first 4 to 8 weeks is the most critical time. That's when you're making decisions on, okay, I need to move out. Where am I going to go? One of the spouses is the predominant breadwinner, and they stopped giving money. What do I do? Right? So this is really essential lifeline type of money and information.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Very good information.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's as much as a litmus test as it is, if they know it, great, perfect. Ask them to follow up on it as quickly as possible. If they don't know it, ask them, please figure it out. And if they don't know it and several other things, consider if there's a knowledge gap that needs to be plugged with your counsel and your case.
Okay.
All right, now moving on to number 4. This one too is more of a former spouse sort of issue. So for our former spouses out there, ask your attorney how disability pay may affect your military retirement. This there's a whole body of Supreme Court case law and state case law that deals with this, and it's really technical. And if your attorney says, yes, I'm aware that disability impacts the former spouse's share of military pension, they're already light years ahead of an attorney who says, I don't think it impacts it at all. So it really shepherdize. If there's no knowledge of that fact, then really everybody's swimming in deep water and not knowing it. So what do you need to know about that? Just, how do you know how much your attorney knows? And the thing to know here is disability pay can cause a waiver of the retired pay. And generally, if the disability is through the VA and it's less than 50%, the waiver is going to occur. So your attorney is going to want to be looking at the situation saying, maybe we want some more of a different asset to make up for that anticipated waiver. If it's above a 50% disability rating, under current law, it doesn't cause a waiver. So knowing where you stand and what's going to happen when you finally get to court will help you decide what assets are really worth. So, uh, and then the fifth one's amazing. We move so much quicker without Pat. I like to think it's because he gives so much good information. So I'm hoping he's.
Well, it's different perspectives. He's had different cases. He's looked at it from a different viewpoint. He's had, different clients. And I think both of you work, so well together with, those different perspectives. So that's really why, and that's why we allot this time together.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we have other things that we're gonna go through.
I was saying that tongue in cheek, but that's actually, and I'm glad you mentioned it. That's one of the real benefits of our firm is we have people that have in-depth, specialized expertise in every part of the military equation.
Yeah.
I'm really been focused on this military, high net worth and military divorce practice area. Pat also does a whole lot of the military admin and discipline, and we have other attorneys that work on security clearance and some employment discrimination. And sometimes that all comes into play in these cases. But I was just giving Pat a little bit of cred here. So let's go to number 5. So the number 5 question that I think you need to ask your attorney is, what is the On-Base Family Advocacy Program, is also known as FAP. This is one that any allegation in the military where there is a suggestion of neglect or abuse within a family, it goes to this on-base informal ish, I'll say, proceeding that's kind of like an internal administrative proceeding. And it's one of these things that the attorneys that do this a lot know about it, because it's something that's totally within the four corners of the base. It's on the other side of the fence. It happens, you don't see it. It's not a public sort of forum, and there's nothing that you can look up online about that. But the reason why I say this is one of those, like I said with number 1, this is as much a litmus test to know the depth of the attorney you're working with knowledge, because we probably see these FAP issues pop up in maybe 10 or 20% of our cases. So, you do, 10 military cases over 3 years, that might be one for them in 3 years. You do a couple hundred like we do, we see it multiple times. With this FAP, what you really want to, if there's any suggestion of abuse or neglect in a case, this is one where there's probably a lot that you and your attorney don't know, and further, don't know that you don't know. And so what you want to be looking for here is how to balance the risk and the reward of navigating 3 simultaneous proceedings when that allegation comes up. First, the FAP, which there can be consequences that are sort of a designation of substantiated or not substantiated, and different things that can follow around a family and a service member through a military career. A military discipline issue, and then a custody issue. There's a real tension between, boy, the FAP stands up and it's way out in front of these other 2 things, right? And you're asking, do I need to testify? I want to testify. I want to defend myself to say these allegations if you're the one that's accused. But of course, defending yourself by making a statement when you're not sure if the military authorities are going to initiate criminal or military justice proceedings is generally a bad idea. But then on the last leg of this, you often see a family law custody case follow right on the heels of the allegation and use of the FAP outcome in that case. So understanding all three of these proceedings is necessary to balance the three-legged stool. And so I want to raise this one because it seems if you don't know about FAP, it's generally too late because you quickly went out and defended yourself and created statements, or you clammed up and now you're dealing with decisions and outcomes in a court. That's an area where a veteran lawyer that served in the military and has that experience really can bring a lot to the fight, for sure.
That's amazing. So let's say somebody is tuning in right now and they've been taking their notes, but they've hired somebody else. Okay. And these questions have not really come up. They've retained somebody else. They didn't know about these questions, or maybe one or two, and the attorney maybe was a familiar, and they've gone back now and said, hey, I kind of just, kind of got educated on this. What do you know about this? What do you know about this? And they didn't know much. Is there an opportunity for that attorney to kind of maybe partner with you, contact you, get the information? They may not be a specialist in this, they may not have expertise, and in the benefit of their client, which is their job. How does that work?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that, Maureen, because that's one of the things. We didn't start out doing this, but it's one of the things that grew out of our practice becoming more and more concentrated in this area of law. Is first we started training lawyers in bar associations, which caused questions to be asked of us, which then turned into formal consulting roles where just the right before let's see, it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it was, I got retained for somebody that had retained a lawyer in Annapolis to be there, and the case was out in Annapolis, to be their family law lawyer. That lawyer, and it's a really good firm too, up in Annapolis. That lawyer had attended one of the seminars that we gave to the Anne Arundel County Bar Association, and we gave this advice. Walked away from it saying, "Wow, there's a lot of pitfalls." Learned about our consulting, and so after retaining the case, he recommended to her to come down and to retain us as military consultants. And what I do in those cases. So to answer your question, yes, there is a way. You don't have to. You likely love your attorney if you're sticking with them, right? I mean, you select them. It's a real
Right.
bond of trust.
Right.
And we can just supplement, we can be the hot dog bun to the hot dog
Right.
sort of thing. And in that case, I had a conference, and it happens different in each case. That case, the client said, "I'd like the attorney," and the attorney said, "Yeah, I'd love to join." And so they were both on a lengthy call with me where I went through all the various facts, gave advice in real time on some of the conversation, followed up on questions and issues on the conversation, and then wrote up a formal legal, advice letter as, an attorney that's part of the trial team. And then I'll be there too when we come and do military pension language in a settlement agreement and military pension division orders. So we do it all the time. It's kind of becoming a bigger part of our practice.
That's great. And I've noticed, since we've been doing this, the people who have been tuning in have been more and more attorneys. And so it's really important for, our attorneys out there who are tuning in to understand that this is available to them because it is for the betterment of their clients. I mean, that is who you serve. You want to, maximize the outcome for them. And here is a service provided to them to get this expertise and this specialization. for them. So, for those of you out there who are tuning in, Patriots Law Group, Mike and Pat offer this to you. And, for those of you who have that attorney, you've retained them, you get the best of both worlds. But, one of the things that you mentioned earlier too, is that you have a variety of lawyers that come with different perspectives, different, expertise in different, areas. You don't just do military divorce. So we are focusing on that specific area for live streaming right now on LinkedIn. We're also on Facebook, we're also on YouTube, so that we can reach a broad audience of people who are experiencing this. But this is not one area that you specialize in. So I think people need to know that your law firm, you serve people in the military community, but you have specialties across the board in the military law. So I think it's important for people to understand that it's multifaceted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you'd be surprised how many times we are bringing different specialties or specialized skills, is maybe I should say, to a divorce case. Um, because there is an allegation that creates a military justice issue. And we have attorneys that work on that. Or a security clearance. We had a case where somebody made an allegation and caused a security clearance to be suspended. We had, not me as the attorney, the family law attorney, which is really my focus for the last 10 or so years, but an attorney that's doing those cases all the time that is brought in to handle that piece. And I'll go and one step further. As we've grown, there are most of our attorneys have our former military attorneys or have military connection. But we have a few attorneys who don't have that because we needed to have special, like really solid family law litigators. Our what we do in our firm is every military connected case is assigned a former military lawyer to it, because just as we advocate saying, you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes you might even know the technical law, like a lot of our non-military family law lawyers in our firm, but they don't have the gut and the experience to say, I think this is how it'll play out. Let's manage the risk this way. So every single case in our firm that has a military connection either has the lead lawyer who has is former military, and if not, a secondary consultant assigned to the lead lawyer. So that's how important we think it is.
That's great. Well, Mike, even though Pat wasn't here, we are just about done with our 30 minutes. I think it went much faster than you realize. So for all of you who tuned in, and we had quite a few of you who were bouncing in and out of here, we want to thank you for those of you who were here today. And if you need to reach out to Mike and his associates, you can go to patriotslawfirm.com. They would be more than happy to speak with you. And of course, any one of our social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, you can direct message the lawyers there and their associates. We will be back the fourth Wednesday of the month with a brand new topic. Again, it's all about military divorce to help you navigate through that. So if you're a veteran, if you're active duty, and as Mike said, they serve the entire military community. So even if you're a military spouse, they are ready and waiting to help you through your military divorce. So we hope you're tuning in to pick up these tips and this legal advice. So we will see you in a couple weeks with more education, more resources, and more of these expertise from these gurus. All right, I'm Maureen Edwards, and I will be back as well. All right, everybody, we are out.